All right, thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to get Christopher Life to come and give you his energy and share with him what he has to offer before we get to the Independent Council. So at this time, Christopher Life.
Good afternoon, everyone. Definitely want to thank Christina and the whole crew out here and everyone who's showed up to bring your energy to make this something. And I think we've all felt some kind of energy, some kind of communion, some type of beauty that's emerging in the space between us. And I'd like to continue to bring that beauty forward by sharing my own personal passion and my devotion and my commitment. And the commitment that I have is that we have a really good answer for what to do whenever we get excited, whenever there's a really powerful presenter like Audrey who shares a really powerful message and then invites us all to get up and do something. And what is that thing that we should do? What's actually relevant? And how often are we inspired and activated and feel something in our heart, but maybe feel disempowered because we're not sure exactly how to translate that inspiration into practical action that can allow us to convert that passion into a transformed world. And I think the first answer to this question is always going to be unique. It's always going to be customized and specific. Every individual has an obligation to answer that question for themselves, to source that answer and that clarity of what of the undone is yours to do, and what of the undone is yours to do next. And the world that we want to create is certainly going to be the synergistic, emergent property of all of us answering that question well. What's mine to do? But it's not good enough to leave it at that, because we need context for collective action, collective organization. We need practical, repeatable, scalable efforts that systematically and methodically transform the world as it is into the world as we'd like it to be. And that's the mission that I've been on personally, is understanding a theory of change that converts our visions of a better world into a politics that enables and expresses and embodies that world. And I've been on this mission for well over 10 years. And that mission has taken various forms, various projects. And in each of those projects, I've been doing my best to be able to hone in an understanding of what we can actually do. Like, what's the path forward where something real, something substantial, something we can sink our teeth into really starts to happen that affirms that this transition that we've all been craving is really underway. And as the years went by, it became very clear that the answer to that was in the political space. And so at that point, I began to become devoted to understanding the relationship between our passion for a better world and the governmental systems and structures that hold our world. And what's driven me over these years isn't only just the aspiration of what's possible, but it's a very real care and concern for the world as it currently is. And I believe that the strongest source of motivation comes from empathy, as was stated earlier today, comes from understanding real pain that exists in the world, and comes from a devotion as suffering alleviators to take action to alleviate suffering and improve quality of life. So I just want to take a minute to read out a list, a non-complete list of areas of the world that I'm personally concerned about, and so that you know what drives me and the work that I'm committed to doing here. We've got some problems. Ecological collapse, species extinction, ocean acidification, climate change, domestic violence, mass incarceration, discrimination, gender inequality, depression, addiction, homelessness, suicide, pollution, mass surveillance, elderly neglect. Military-industrial complex, international violence, nuclear weapons, sexual violence, sex trafficking, pervasive fear, anxiety, and paranoia, natural disasters, food insecurity, biodiversity loss, child abuse, child labor, mass diet-related disease, deteriorating democracies, deteriorating civil rights, civil disengagement, displacement, resource depletion, biotechnology threats, deforestation, desertification, vast inequality, hunger, starvation, malnutrition, government and corporate corruption, meaning crisis, human rights violations, population size, water scarcity, profit at all costs economics, financial system collapse, ozone depletion, artificial intelligence threats, pandemics. Do any of those things concern you as well? And we need solutions that are correlatively powerful enough to meet the magnitude of those challenges. And I come to offer that politics actually provides a solution, and that solution can feel very empty and hollow with the typical connotation that we have around politics, right? We think we're the politics, we think about backbiting and vying for power and manipulation and deceit and abuse of power. And those are connotations we put on the word politics, understandably. But if we keep those connotations of what the word politics means, we'll be separated from the power of what the word politics could provide us. And politics comes from the Greek root polis, which means my city, the place that I call home. Politics is the energy that has us come off of our individual farm to come together, to collaborate, to make decisions together, to figure out how we can make the place we call home the place we want it to be. So politics has this very powerful connotation. And I believe the first step that we need to do is to reclaim politics. In order to reclaim politics, we have to redefine it. And I offer you that politics can actually be a true heart-centered devotion to place and people that leads to empowered collective vision, empowered collective sense-making and choice-making, empowered collective capacities to take action together, to make decisions together, to hold ourselves accountable, and to be stewards together. And so that's the politics that I offer. That's the new politics that I stand for. And when I say the word politics, I hope you know what I mean. It means all of us saying, yes, this is the place we call home. We care about the people and the place we share that home with. And so we will step forward. We will bring our leadership forward. We will figure out how to make sense of this world together. We'll figure out how to make choices and decisions together. We'll figure out how to hold ourselves accountable to our own greatness. Now, we can't just legislate that definition of politics into being, right? We can't just declare that and imagine that all of a sudden everyone's going to catch on to that. In order to live into this new politics, we must live in to a new culture, a new civic culture that helps every individual within themselves awaken to a greater degree of stewardship. So when people look in the mirror, say, good morning, self. This is the place that I call home. And I'm doing something about it today to make that place that I call home both have less suffering and improve quality of life. And when we all step up each day, then we're beginning to embody that culture. I call it a civic culture, a culture of a new politics. And that culture has to refine, I believe, revolve around two very specific things. The first is that we develop a competence, and it's just like the last gal was just speaking. We develop a competence on how to show up to improve the quality of life. We know how to improve the quality of the experience of being alive for ourselves and those that we're here to serve. And I made also an impartial list of some examples of this. Civic education, suicide prevention, community health interventions, entrepreneurial education, trauma healing, emotional support, a sharing economy, environmental education, governance improvements, physical cleanup, physical beautification, public safety measures, conflict resolution, career support, income augmentation, local resilience, domestic violence awareness, activism against imminent local threats, ecological restoration, agricultural education, community gardens, emergency preparation, education about global affairs, truth and reconciliation, new recreation options, and elderly support. These are very practical things that actually alleviate suffering, actually reduce unnecessary pain, and actually improve the quality of the experience of being alive for people. So as we step forward with this new civic culture, we need to actually understand what actually gets the job done of actually improving quality of life. The second thing we need in this new civic culture is a devotion to good governance, a devotion to perpetually improving the governance systems that we use, both the governmental systems and all other forms of communal and organizational governance that help us to come together in politics. Because what is politics? But it's being able to come together in collective action, collective sense-making, and collective choice-making to improve the quality of life, with an earnest intent to improve quality of life. And so how we govern is critical. And there's things that we can do systematically to improve the governmental governance institutions. There's things that we can do as citizens to help our elected officials, our city council members, and our mayors to improve the quality of how they make sense about the city. That involves better source of information and involves a deeper integration with the community to learn from the community about what matters to the community, right? So each of you can actually play a role to help your local officials improve their capacity to make sense. There's things we can do to help our elected officials locally to improve the capacity to make decisions together, bringing forward technology platforms and other polling systems that help them to stay in greater touch with their constituents. There's things that we can do to help to increase the transparency of local government. And there's things we can do to help to increase the accountability of local government. And all of this points to this duo of us as civic leaders, able to and committed to systematically improving quality of life and improving governance. And if we can activate a movement of individuals who understand how to do this, who can practically take action in their local communities, then that's a movement that has profound implications. Because there's a powerful feedback loop between civic leaders who improve quality of life and who also improve local governance. And we need a system to help to hold this feedback loop. And we're calling the system a civic assembly or a citizen assembly. So if we have individuals who say, wow, I was really inspired on stage, but I'm really inspired by what was said on stage, but I'm not quite sure what to do next. This is exactly what they can do next. They can activate a local citizen assembly. They can begin to systematically do reconnaissance around their areas. They can understand the greatest pain points of the constituents they're committed to serving, and they can understand the greatest opportunities available to improving quality of life in those areas. And they, independent of government intervention, can begin to start taking action toward that. They begin to organize local nonprofits. They can create additional awareness for those nonprofit organizations. They can activate local educational campaigns that help people that are suffering know about existing services that exist that they didn't even know existed before. So they can work on that list of those pain points of all the different suffering in the world. And they work on that list of examples of programs and solutions. And they can start to immediately, inherently, intrinsically create value towards that end. And simultaneously, they can start to engage with their local city council. They can be trained as civic leaders to be able to show up in city council and start to talk about these particular issues. and start to petition for local municipal programs and local municipal budgets to be able to get the support and resources to drive these quality of life improvement programs further. And as they start to take those types of actions and gain that support, then they're going to build their local network, and they're going to build their local support base. And volunteers are going to be a part of these projects, and different stakeholders, business stakeholders and community influencers are going to start to be a part of these projects. They're going to start to meet local donors and start to build trust with local donors. And they're going to start to improve their capacities to organize. And what do all those things lead towards? They lead towards their ability to actually step up as stewards to run for city council, to step up as stewards and run for mayor, ultimately step up as stewards and run for Congress, run for governorship. And so what we really need to do, and this term patience was mentioned earlier today. Listen, if I had a theory of change that I could offer, that I believed we could do in the next couple of years and just get the job done and then all like kind of be like, whew, we did the save the world thing, now we can just like take a break. I'd love to offer you a 2 or 3 year vision. I don't have one. And I've been thinking about this long and hard for a long time. I believe we need about 10 to 20 years of a concentrated effort of building a cultural movement of civic leadership where individuals feel empowered to be able to activate citizen assemblies and begin to deploy those organizational powers to improve quality of life inherently, to improve local governance, and to prepare to move into and occupy those seats of governmental leadership when the time is right and when the conditions are right for them to win those elections into city council and to win those elections in mayorship and ultimately to win those elections into congressional leadership and beyond. And that's the independent movement that we're actually talking about. It's not just about being able to get somebody elected. It's a relatively hollow aspiration to just try and get somebody elected. Now, the standard message of the Independent National Union, which is the organization that I'm representing, is the message of we need to rise up as independents to be able to create political solutions outside the duopoly, because the duopoly is a current tyrannical political force that's actually completely undermined liberty in America and the world. So I'm with we need to organize as independent electorate, individuals and organizations, in order to create a new era of American government that's no longer controlled by the duopoly, and I completely believe that's possible. And I used to think that getting really good at winning elections as independents was going to get the job done. But we actually need to fill in all the space in between. We need an integrous, connected, structural, functional movement of people that are all systematically decentralized, but in concert, improving quality of life, improving their own political power, and preparing to lead the future of government from that integration of wisdom, love, and power. And we're not ready for that type of governmental leadership right now. We're not. But it's coming. And we need to make sure that we are fully prepared as ubiquitously as we possibly can across this country so that when we're ready, that we can all step up into leadership. Now, that's what the Independent National Union is committed to, right? Independence, because we must think and speak and act for ourselves. There's no way that we can authentically step up in this new politics devoted to earnestly improving quality of life for all while still being beholden and affiliated to organizations, corporations, or political parties with ulterior motives. It's impossible. So independence is not sufficient, but it's a requirement for this political movement. And the reason we're a political union is because we're a context for collective action. We're an invitation, a context for hundreds of organizations who are devoted to this path forward to be able to find their place in this movement of a new political culture. And it's a context for millions of Americans, right? We have 40% of Americans who identify as independents. Most of them have no context for collective political action. And so many other individuals that are young and that have never actually engaged in the political process before. And so many that used to be active but become disenfranchised for some particular reason. And all of those people need an invitation to a space where they can engage, when they can authentically believe that they're participating in something not that's just designed to win elections, but something that's actually designed to create a systemic transformation in the fabric of our society. And so the Independent National Union was birthed in October of 2020. It was the transformation of a previous political organization that existed for several years prior. And we've been spending the last year figuring out exactly how to articulate this theory of change that I'm doing my best to articulate to you today. And we're rolling out 6 programs starting Q3 of 2021, which was a couple days ago. And the first program is the building of a national narrative. Right? We need to actually become extremely competent in articulating a national narrative of a movement of civic engagement and civic culture, and a movement of political independence. Not just political independence by affiliation, but that we actually have individuals that can think and speak and act for themselves in service to all they represent in order to improve the quality of life for all. So we need to become experts at driving that national narrative and having the distribution channels, and that's part of the preparation for these election outcomes that we're going to need in 4, 8, 12, and 16 years from now. Second, we need to build an audience. We need to develop a relationship of trust with millions of people that have opted into communication with the Independent National Union, that we can communicate with, that we can prepare content that inspires, educates, engages, and invites people into participation. And we need to scale this audience in every way possible. Email communication, social media outreach, as well as decentralized through various different media sources. So that's our audience building program. Our third program is interorganizational synergy. Right? We need to start to develop competent capacities to be able to assess the total landscape of aligned organizations. This is a major body of work. Requires a lot of skill, a lot of project management to really understand the hundreds of organizations, the thousands of stakeholders, to be able to start to build relationships with them and invite them to partner as we deploy this type of programming. The fourth program is our good governance. We need to formally articulate the good governance standards of the future and empower citizens to be able to bring those good governance standards to their elected officials and challenge them to sign on to them, and be able to, through those citizen assemblies, empower them with the protocols that they're going to need, the practical capacities and skill building that those elected officials and administrations are going to need to be able to apply those good governance standards. And our fifth program is the civic training, that we need to be able to systematically invite individuals in that know in their hearts that they have a role to play, that they're ready to stand up in this new politics. They're ready to feel a sense of participation. And they don't just have to create a new company to do it, or they don't just need to make a tweet to be able to do it, but they're actually ready to lean into the public sector. And we need to train and empower them on how to do this type of local reconnaissance, do this type of local citizen assembly building, instigate and activate quality of life improvement programs, systematically improve local governance, and ultimately prepare them for their own political stewardship. And so that's our civic education training. And our sixth program is simply building the membership. And the membership of this union is quite simple. It's individuals who say, I want that to happen. I know we need something big and thick and deep and long term that's fully integrated in the relationship between quality of life and government. And I'm going to step forward as a member to contribute something that I have. Contribute some money, contribute some time, contribute some of my network or some of my insights. And in this union, we're going to integrate those things together. That's what makes it a union. We're going to put our different pieces together and enable these programs to start to roll out and to start to scale. And each of you are invited on this journey. Each of you are invited into membership. Each of you are invited into participation as we roll out our capacities to articulate this new civic culture and little by little run experiments that empower people in this civic culture and ultimately prepare us to be able to scale this civic culture. I'd like to see, just by raise of a hand, who's interested in this conversation? Who's interested in this body of work? Great. Please come up and talk to me afterwards. I'd love to be able to talk to you a little bit further. And I'm also just going to give you my phone number right now for anybody who wants to just jot that down. You can just text me, and we can get together afterwards as well. So anyone who's interested, I'll just give you my number, which is 760 420 8983. My name is Christopher Life. Again, that's 760 420 8983. Text me. I'd love to invite you in to be a participant in helping to activate this next stage of programming that's directly intended to be able to serve this theory of change that I've been doing my best to articulate, to be able to fulfill our mission, right? And that mission is to be able to empower civic leaders with a new civic culture that enables them to improve the quality of life and improve the quality of governance in service to improving quality of life for all. And you're all invited into that, and thank you so much for your time and attention.
Christopher Levy, thank you very much.